still closed. There's one safety in the middle. You know, these are reduced splits here, so you naturally, see outside leverage by the corner. You typically don't see outside leverage by a corner unless there's reduced splits because, from a defensive standpoint, they're going to think, something's going to come back, uh, outside, right? And there's enough space for the defense to funnel these guys into their help. So that's the thought process, lining up outside leverage with tighter splits. Okay, it's a 4 down even front with the backer that's stacked right over the nose. So I would call this, depending on the strength, I would call this um, a stack look, and it's really not an even front. My apologies, the center's covered up. So this is an odd structure with, I don't know what personnel this is, whether it's a linebacker or stand-up end, but it presents as a 4 down front, but with an odd structure. Okay, and so what's the purpose of understanding that? Well, as you do breakdowns and you get the information, you start to try to funnel, like, what do they do out of this? What do they like to run out of it? What stunts do they run? What are they trying to accomplish as far as moving personnel around based off of the front that they use? And so it's never just I'm going to be able to extract a ton of info or all the info I need from a particular look, but over time, the goal is to be able to accumulate enough info to be able to start finding tells. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have a little RPO action, and so they're trying to put somebody in conflict. So my assumption is this is kind of a predetermined deal. So it's really like a play action. It's not really an RPO. They run a little spot concept, or some people call it snag. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to have this route replace the curl flat player. And then the curl flat player has got to make a decision whether he's going to stick on this route or expand out. So that's what the quarterback's read is. He felt like there's enough space because this guy kind of moved outside the window, and then he sat it down. Okay, so some people call it spot, some people call it snag. I'm sure other people will like have different naming conventions for it as well. You look at the quarterback's timing. Okay, now you could see the odd structure here. And then what makes an odd front? The center's covered up. That's essentially what makes an odd front. Center has somebody right over him. And then they have a reduction here. So they have really somebody in a B gap there with an odd structure. So this has a blend of, traditionally speaking, when you see an odd front, you typically see, like back in the day, you typically saw this end lined up outside of the tackle, right? But teams are now starting to present this type of look, and then they try to close up the B gaps post snap because a lot of offenses, based off of like the old 4 down structures, would try to find what's called the bubble. Have you ever heard me explain what the bubble is to Luke?
Yeah, but I forget.
It's the space in between the guard and the tackle. And as you notice here, the defense is trying to not give the offense the illusion that there's space because versus the 4 down looks, if you find the bubble, then it typically creates a conflict for the corresponding linebacker that would be responsible to fit in the bubble. So you're trying to put people in conflict with that. With the new school thought from a defensive standpoint is they want to try to close up the A and B gaps and make the ball bounce, spill the ball towards their help. So they present like a lighter box look, like here. You don't have anybody outside eye of the tackle at the first level. You have a linebacker there. This, like in old days, you'd consider this a lighter box because, hey, there's no C gap player outside of him. But the defense's purpose is to try to make the ball bounce so that this guy can be able to attack it with his outside shoulder free and then attacking it with his inside shoulder. And then the safeties, the corners, and then the other linebackers kind of overlap and try to fit it and then vice it in. If that makes sense. Okay, a little poke fake. All right, his eyes are immediately on the curl flat player, as you can see. Makes a quick decision, like he flips his hips, lines up his back ankle eye, and then delivers a good ball. That's a good ball placement that allows the receiver to get a little yak, right? Little yards after the catch. But I think it's probably a 4th down now. I don't think they got it. Or maybe they did. 4th down. 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 We got to 3rd and 2. Okay, now this is an unbalanced set. Okay, so you don't have any eligible receiver here. This does not look like a tight end type, so it looks like the tackle. And then you have every other body over here. And this looks like, so this might actually be the tight end here on the right. And that looks like a big body right there, like a tackle's body. So you kind of see how they shifted a line over. And then they have a wing and they have two receivers. And then the back started off here and then they bounced it back that way. So the offense is trying to force the defense to declare their alignment. And if the coach in the box sees that they're not aligning to this correctly, then they should have a complementary play that will attack, wherever the defense is weakest, if that makes sense. So that's unbalanced sets. You're trying to get the defense to recognize the set and line up correctly. That takes practice time, and that kind of drains the resources of the other team. That's the thought process. That makes sense from a tactics standpoint.
Yeah, but the quarterback has to make the call based on what the defense does. And so our plays this year were all set plays called by the coach, and the coach didn't want to adjust any.
Which is fine. I mean, it's they're young still, right? They're young, and so I think depending on the ability level and the knowledge level of the athlete, well, that'll kind of dictate what the kid can handle. At Luke's age, I don't think many people are doing audibles.
So this guy is so the audible that the quarterback has is choosing the receiver.
Not
That's
necessarily, it just depends on the play. But I think, just over the overarching like 10,000 foot view is you line up in this type of set to see if the defense lines up correctly or not. And then as a coach and as a play caller, you then you then are trying to get in the right play based off of how they align. Because it's not normal. You don't normally see an offense line up in this type of set. They're typically lining up with an eligible receivers on both sides. They are not doing that in this instance. So it's an
so
unbalanced look.
you're setting up your next play,
You're setting up
future
your you're
play.
setting up a series of plays if you're smart. Some people will kind of throw these in there and not have like a series of plays, which is not wise. You should have like a run set up to go weak. You should have a run set up to go strong. And in a perfect world, you should have some type of play action off of this, in my opinion, if you're going to run it, because it forces the defense to get in their set recognition mode. They got to line up correctly, because when you think about it, there's really three offensive linemen here to the left of the center, and you have a wing. So this just created like three different gaps or two different gaps. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, their thought process may be to run here because they have somebody lined up in the B gap, where you could double team there, you could kick out here, and you could pull a guard through, and then have the center block here, this tackle kind of square drag and hinge on the backside. So you could run some type of gap scheme there and say, hey, we have a numbers advantage based off of how you lined up. And then that might make them the next time, maybe bring this guy in the box, and then this guy's down a little bit tighter, and then this guy's kicked over, and then maybe the weak side run will be better. So it's a tactic. See what they do. Okay, see what they did. They ended up running weak with the quarterback.
Does not look like it's going to work very well.
No, it doesn't. But like from a pure numbers standpoint,
Doesn't look good. Even look at that. That doesn't look good right from the start, does it?
started at the freaking beginning. That's the problem with we'll just move on because I don't have this thing edited. Okay, so again, there's that 4 down personnel with the head up on the center. You could see like there's nobody outside of the tackle on the first level of the defense. Their goal with these alignments is try to spill the ball to the outside for this guy to help, and then for these guys to rally. Okay, now they do a little counter trace scheme they pull this offensive lineman, and then this wing is essentially the second level puller. He's going to work off of how this guy approaches the defense. He'll either go inside or he'll wrap outside, and then the back is taught to pickpocket this guy. So pretend like he's got his wallet in his back hip, and he's got to be able to get close enough to be able to reach and pickpocket the wallet, right? And use this block because he's reading out how this guy's going to block it. You see how they went inside? He ended up kicking out. So he ends up going inside looking for the first wrong color. And then this guy's in a position to pickpocket his puller. So that's referred to as a gap scheme. You ever heard that term? Gap scheme?
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to create a wall, like blocking back, and then you're going to get somebody to pull, to kick out, or log, or to reach. And then the second level puller is going to insert based off of how the kick out or the log happens. And then this back is going to be tied to the second level puller. Okay, you see how they form the wall, blocking back, he inserts there. So they've created good numbers here, or the offense has.
Like there might have been more room outside for the running back.
Yeah, but like you see how the offensive lineman kicked him out, kicked out the
So,
end, the guy who ended
mhm.
up being the end.
Yeah, it was after that first move, it seemed like it opened up outside. But yeah, the first move had to
Yeah,
be
but you
inside.
have to, like, when you're playing, you have to make the decision, and you can't, it's easier to watch the film and say, hey, you should have done this.
Oh,
It's
obviously,
like
yeah.
you got to have some hard and fast rules in regards to what they should be doing as far as a response, and then you got to go play, and then hopefully they can make a guy miss after they made their decision. You know. Okay. All right. So reduce splits here. A one high safety look again. Okay. It looks like to me, it looks like they're going to be doing doing like man-to-man coverage here because how tight he is. They're off levels. Okay, he's in position to play slightly outside, and he could funnel this guy over to the post player, the safety or this linebacker. That's what I'm thinking as far as their alignment goes. Little false start. A little bit of a different presentation from the defense now. Now they have a one technique outside eye of the center. They have a three technique here. They have more five and a five. So this is more of like a traditional four down type look, like I was talking about earlier. Here the bubble is really on this side here. So like back in when I was first starting coaching, even when I was playing, spread offense is trying to find the bubble and trying to put whoever's responsible for that space in conflict, whether it's like a pass or a run or like a bubble screen on the perimeter to make that guy have to play both. And that's kind of where RPOs came from. All right, guys started moving a little early. Is this too much info? Is this helpful?
No, it's helpful.
Okay, now they motion. So motioning from a 3-by-1 to a 2-by-2. So the goal there from an offensive standpoint is you get to see what their alignment is because this is still relatively early in the game. Man, not I mean it's I think second quarter, but you're seeing how they line up versus a 3-by-1 and then how they line up versus a 2-by-2, right? So you're
Hmm.
gathering and garnering information there. Okay. It forces them to communicate here based off of having an extra receiver threat. Good play design, just lack of execution there. All right, there's one in the roof. Talk to Luke about one high safety. Hold on one second. The rest are what they're near kids. Sorry. You and I are early risers. I already went to Denny's this morning, had myself a egg white veggie omelet.
Nice.
Yeah, the Denny's by the racetrack is all like I used to go to Denny's and study and do late night things, and that food always destroyed my stomach. But this one by the racetrack in Del Mar, it's actually really good.
Oh yeah, I know what that is. That's a great little spot.
Yeah. So I really like this play design. You see hard hats. You know what I mean by hard hats?
No,
Offensive linemen more firing out as opposed to retreating in pass protection, right? Hard hats is run. High hats is like a pass, right?
I
So
see.
like from a defensive standpoint, some of these guys are taught to have split vision. So you're looking at the pre-snap alignment of the offense, and based off of your front and your call, you have rules as far as how you align. And then at the snap, you have to read your keys. You have a particular key. If if I see this, then I do this, right? It's kind of like if then statements. And so, generally speaking, if they see hard hats, then they're thinking run. If they see high hats, then they're thinking pass, and then they get in their pass coverage responsibility. With today's football, there's a lot of RPOs, there's a lot of like blended hybrid type concepts where they're so this is enough presentation of hard hat to get these linebackers to think it might be a run, is what I'm saying. And you could see how this influences these guys here. What does it do? Gets them to go down towards the line of scrimmage. It gets him to go down towards the line of scrimmage, so he's not worrying about rerouting this guy. This guy's going to get a clean release. I mean, a clean enough release. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then
He,
this guy stepped up for run responsibility. Then he's trying to get into his pass coverage responsibility. They already ran these two guys out on this side, and then look at all this grass that this creates. And I've talked to Luke about anticipating throws, right? It's like, okay, you've got these routes that are pulling these defenders out. You have all this grass right here. And he's anticipating this throw. As soon as he's even with this guy, he's making the throw, he just misses. See when he's letting it go? Like
yeah.
the guy's still even with them. And then a split second later, he's not. Like there's all this space. That's why timing is so important. Because look, if this guy would have hitched up an extra, if he would have made an extra hitch, look at this wrong colors right in his face. And this is probably what created an errant throw. Let's see it from the back shot. Um, okay, he's got his vision here. There's wrong color, so you can't just stick it on him right here, right? He's got to he's got to throw it with a little trajectory here. Starts to anticipate the throw. This wrong color, I think, definitely affected him. And he kind of pulls his arm across as opposed to like, back, elbow forward, arm coming through, and then boom, down here to the opposite pocket. And I don't think that was necessarily the reason it was so errant, but I think it had a factor. Just kind
He
of
was four
swiped
yards, four or
across.
5 yards away.
Yeah,
He jumped.
he's got to be able to make that throw. You got to stick it on him. And I think like this left side I've talked to Luke about is separating from his hands separate from the ball. He goes in his palms are facing the ball, then the palms are facing down, and then he accelerates that off arm back to the midline of the body. Like you kind of see this quarterback, his shoulder and his arm, left arm are kind of pulling his body out, and there's a little bit of a lean.
That's a great route. That is a good play.
Yeah, good play, good anticipation. It's just like just one little thing was off, the throw, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I like this ball placement. You kind of see it's still like middle field closed. You have outside leverage here at the throw. And you see where the quarterback threw the ball. See where he placed it on him?
Mm-hmm. Inside shoulder.
Inside shoulder, outside leverage by the defender. He breaks on the outside shoulder, and then the quarterback throws it at eye level just inside.
Was not a lot of room there.
What's that?
Was not a lot of room there to
No.
fit the ball in.
And that's, there's some of the training that we do and stuff that we've done on the field, where I have targets flash hands. I mean, it kind of get monotonous, right? It's like, okay, react to the throw, but that's really what it comes boils down to, because the other team practices too. They're going to be in position and he throws it away from interception danger. You kind of see this other person's arm here, the defender's arm going for the top shoulder. And then he's able to uncover that he's able to throw the ball where this guy can pivot back inside and make the catch. That's pretty good. That's a really good job by the receiver too.
Gains another 10 yards or so to push.
I think that's the other quarterback.
Oh,
I think that guy kind of lined up at quarterback earlier. Okay, so now they're in a 3-by-1 again, and then they motion. Notice how they did that before, and then they did a play action earlier. Okay, same defense. They're playing like a cover, like a blended cover 3 with match zone principles. You know what match zone is in defense on in basketball?
no.
You're looking for, okay, let me not use a basketball analogy, but like a match principle is when these defenders, they're looking to match routes. So they're looking for the final 1, 2, and 3 because you typically have no more than 3 guys to one side. In some schemes, you might have 4 guys to a side. You have 3 receivers and then you swing the back. That's 4 threats, right? So it's
Mhm.
like a numbers game, and they're trying to match the numbers. So when you say the word final, you're talking about where people end up, not where they line up pre-snap, right? So you're looking for the final 1, 2, and 3 as a defender. And so from the defense's standpoint, the corner would typically match. He might be disguising, he might be playing man. This guy might be playing zone here, playing match. He's going to match the final number 1. Okay, this guy would match the final number 2. This guy would match the final number 3. So however the routes distribute. So if this guy runs here, boom, this guy runs there, and then something ends up like coming across over here, sits down. You see it. This guy ends up being the final 1 here, right? This guy ends up being the final number 2, and this guy ends up being the final number 3 on this side. So they're looking for routes to go up, out, or in when it's a match coverage. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And then typically speaking, if a route goes up to an 8-yard threshold, and at that point, the defender will match that route and play man on that route. Okay. If a route breaks out or in underneath that 8 yards, so like 7 yards, let's just say like that's like that line. If it breaks underneath 7 yards out or in, then he is no longer going to match this guy. He's going to look for the new final number 1. So that's what I think this is. I think it's more of like a match coverage, and it's eerily similar to a cover 1, right? And by structure, it could be pretty similar to a cover 3. But you kind of determine what it is by how they respond to the different route combinations. And there's no rule saying a defense has to play one coverage snap after snap, right? They can mix their coverages. And then when you go in motion, the defense is typically given a toolkit to be able to adjust the coverage. That's what they're called auto checks, like an automatic check versus one presentation, and then they move over and they motion to another presentation. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I think like, and you even see that this guy, remember this guy kind of showed like he was playing man earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but what is he doing with his helmet and his eyes?
Run into his own deep third.
He's looking inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it was man, where would he be looking?
At the guy.
At the receiver, not worrying about the quarterback. He would then adjust once the receiver snaps his eyes back to the quarterback. Then he would take his eyes, try to make a play on the ball, right? But since like this, so they presented like a man look, but it's actually like a zone look. Look what he did at the snap. So this guy's looking for the final number one. He goes past certain depth. Boom, he's going to just stick with them. This guy's looking for the final two on this side. And then, on this side, he's looking for the final two. He's looking for the final one. If this guy pushes vertical, then he'll match him. That's what I'm thinking. See how he's carrying him vertical.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a typical cover three, what would this guy would then pass him off after a certain depth and then go play the curl flat. But since it's a match cover three, he's carrying him. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So like when I talk to Luke and as we do more of these types of sessions and we're out in the field and we're kind of talking about scheme, when you think about this type of defense, what are the open areas of a match cover three? The flats are going to be typically, this space out here is going to be typically open out there, out here. Okay. If you end up doing this where you run this guy vertical, you run that guy vertical, and then say you did like a little play fake here, and then you ran this guy across, that can mess up a match because if he pushes vertical, he's going to relate and match to this route. And so it'll leave this space open, and then the play fake will mess his eyes up, and it just ends up in this window where that was vacated. Okay, another way to attack a match cover three is by running, say you run, again, verticals on the inside. So you run this guy vertical, this guy matches that route. This guy runs vertical, this guy matches that route. And then you could run, like at about 10 yards, run a stop route. 10 yards, run a stop. Because what's going to happen if this guy pushes past about 8 yards, he's going to start to like open up his hips and think what? That he's going to run deep. And if he puts on the brakes at 10, and then this guy ran him off, there's open space out here, right?
Right.
But like in like a traditional spot dropping cover three, if if he sees that, he might carry there and then boom, go because he knows he's going to deliver. He's going to carry him for a little bit or reroute him, and then he's going to deliver him to who? The safety. But and that's in like a spot dropping cover three. Then he might be in a position to make a play on this throw. But since it's match, he's going to carry and match him. I did a little screen off of that. Didn't really work. One of the things that messes up screens is the angle of departure of the offensive line. And you see this left tackle as he departs, he kind of chips a guy, and then he kind of goes. His first steps are vertical. I'm talking about. I'm talking about this guy right here. Watch him after he chips this defender. Look to see where he goes. Does he go directly upfield or does he go flat? Tell me once you see it.
Goes vertical.
He goes
Goes
vertical.
directly out.
He goes directly out. So, like, don't you think it'd make more sense for as soon as he chips for him to then go flat and then adjust up? Because it's harder to go up and then flat. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I see.
So that's a common thing I see at all the freaking levels. Like go flat, then adjust high. Because you can't go high, then adjust flat is easy. And then if he goes flat, it might just give him enough room to kind of push this guy out to the numbers. And if he's able to push him out to the numbers and disrupt him, let's see what happens.
All he can do is kick out now, even if Betty couldn't catch him.
Like, but if he went flat his first two steps, don't you think this guy's only path would have been to go outside, and then he has a better opportunity to set up and like cut inside of that?
Right. Yeah, I see that.
That's it. Maybe it wouldn't happen, but you at least have a chance. You at least have a chance if like that first guy, and the way I always constructed screens is you have like a basic formula. You have a kick, alley, clean. So you got a guy that's going to be the kick out man. So kick and then alley and then the clean guy. Kick, alley, clean. He is the kick man. He's kicking out first thing he shows. He's going to go flat and then seal the alley. And then this guy is going to go flat. If any wrong colors are, he'll take it, but then he's going to clean up any type of retrace. See that? See how that's constructed?
Hmm.
Kick, alley, clean. So
Hmm.
with these screens that have more moving parts, I always kind of lump them as a execution screen. There's a lot of moving parts here. Don't you agree?
Hmm.
It takes a lot of execution to get this right, but when you get it right, like it's a beautiful thing. The advantage screens are your bubbles, are your nows. They're the screens that are just kind of like, hey, one guy just needs to execute a block, and we should be able to get at least 4 yards on an advantage screen because we have advantage leverage versus the defense because of the way that they're aligned. All right, it's 8:09. I better get going. Um,
Where will I find the recording?
let's see. Pretty sure I recorded this. I'll throw it into a Dropbox and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Pretty sure I did the computer recording. But yeah, I'd like to get down to the San Diego area at least one time a week, if possible, maybe one time every 2 weeks. I did a group session over at San Diego State on last Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Um, but I'd like to try to get like one day in the middle of the week